Okay, so welcome to today's lecture. Today we are going to take a slight detour from the singular value decomposition from the whatever we were discussing regarding SVD, and it is primarily motivated by the fact that towards the end of the last lecture we were talking about the power method, and that power method involved several multiplications of matrices. So I thought that maybe we can briefly discuss how can we perform multiplications for very large matrices, for very massive matrices. We will do that using what is in general termed as sampling. So the agenda for today's lecture is like matrix multiplication using sampling. So the basic theme of any sampling method, it involves three steps, in especially in the context of matrices. So in the first step, what we'll do is that we will sample rows or columns or even entries of a matrix. Then using those sample rows or columns, we will solve the problem of our interest on the smaller matrix. Okay, and in the third step, just to finish off everything that our the sampling method it works, we have to give some performance guarantee. Okay, so this is the general thing. Now, since we are not using the whole matrix, we are doing sampling, so there is some approximation that is going on. So we cannot expect the result to be exactly similar to what we will get if we were considering the whole matrix, or we can say the all the rows, all the columns, and all the entries. So the performance guarantees relates to the approximation, in the sense that how good is our sampling scheme or whatever we have done. So today we want to discuss, as we said, matrix multiplication. So let us just start with an example. Okay, so we can just pick any. So let us say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so this is everyone knows this 3 cross 2 matrix. This is sorry. This is a 2 cross 3 matrix. This is a 3 cross 2 matrix, and the result will be a 2 cross 2 matrix. If we have to use the traditional method of matrix multiplication, what we generally do is that we'll take the first row, first column, then we'll do second row, first row, second column, do second row, and 8, 10, 12. So we get the 4 cross 4 matrix, and this is the traditional way of doing this. But for the purpose of sampling, we do not know how to approach using this traditional method. So we will slightly change our perspective, or on the way we look at matrix multiplication. Okay, so we'll start by just the vector form. We'll do step by step. So if we have to multiply a vector with a matrix, we can, as we do in linear algebra, we can look the matrix multiplication as a linear combination of rows. 1, 4, 7 plus 3, 6, 11. In fact, many of the concepts in linear algebra are based on this particular view of ax equals to b, we say that there is a solution if B lies in the column space of the matrix, and so on and so forth. So we can just extend this to a matrix multiplication form, and the extension is quite straightforward. So here we have, so what we'll do is that we have 1 4 do 7 8 plus 2 5 9 10 plus 3 6 11 12. Okay, so this is so each of these entries, each of them is a 2 cross 2 matrix of rank 1. You can verify that it has rank 1. It does have rank 1. So this is the view of matrix multiplication that we will consider in this lecture. So if we have a more general matrix, if we have to write it in a general form, let us say that we have an A matrix whose columns are, to denote that these are columns, and then we have a B matrix with these rows Bn transpose. Okay, so based on the example that we have seen, we can decompose the result of the matrix multiplication in the following form: B1 transpose plus A2 B2 transpose and AN BN transpose. Okay, so such a representation of matrix multiplication enables an easy way of looking at the whole sampling procedure. So here we have n terms. Okay, we have n terms. When we want to approximate it, what we will do is that we have in total n terms. So for approximation, pick C many of them. Okay, so this is the main idea. So we have a sum of n terms. So rather than using all n of them, we are using just the C of them. Okay, but the idea has some parallels with singular value decomposition, where we are also decomposing a matrix into rank 1 matrices, and we have R of them, where R is the rank of the original matrix. But there, when we are saying that we want a K rank approximation, we picked the first K terms which have the largest component. Here, we look at a randomized version of it, where we do not pick the largest ones, but we pick C of them using a distribution. Okay, it gives different kinds of guarantees, but we pick C many of these terms using some probability distribution. Okay, so we will associate probability distribution as follows. So we will pick the first term with probability P1, second term with probability P2, and so on, and nth term with probability Pn. Okay, and of course we should have that they sum up to 1. Okay, otherwise, yeah, so we do not allow that there is a sample where we do not pick anything. Okay, so this is the main idea of how we are going to approximate the matrix multiplication. First step is to change the viewpoint of the multiplication and write it as a sum of product of the rows and columns, and out of those n, just pick C of them using some distribution. We will later see how to select P1, P2s and Pns. But before going forward, let us just write down the algorithm that we have discussed. The algorithm is quite simple. Here we say that we are picking those terms with replacement. It means that we can pick the same terms multiple times as well. Then in the second step, we will normalize the pick by 1 upon pi. Okay, so we will see later why this normalization is important when we look at the guarantees. And then we will sort of, after this loop is done, then we will sort of take an average of whatever, of all the sums. Basically, we have to divide by C. Okay, we can consider a sample run. Let us assume that C is equal to 3. Okay, let us assume that C is equal to 3, and at T is equal to 1, where T can go from 1 to C, we get, let's say, JT, we get J1 is equal to 2. Okay, so we pick A2, B2 transpose, we normalize it by 1 by P2. Then at T is equal to 2, let us suppose that we got J2 is equal to 1. Then we pick A1, B1 transpose and we normalize it by P1. At T is equal to 3, if we got J3 is equal to 1 again, because we are doing it with replacement, we again write it as A1, B1 transpose into 1 upon P1. And at the end, we approximate the result by adding these three terms and normalizing by 1 by C. Okay, so if we have to write it more formally, if we have to multiply two matrices A and B, that multiplication, the exact form of multiplication is given like this, that we saw, where AI is the column of matrix A, Bi transpose is the row of matrix B. We approximate it using okay, so we approximate it using this sum. So the idea is quite simple. Now, rather than we in the next step, we just approximate or we just represent this sum in a more compact form. Okay, so let us say that we had a large matrix A and a large matrix B. Now we have to approximate it with C and R, which are relatively smaller to A and B. Okay, so how we will do it is that we'll again go through the whole process. Let us say at T is equal to 1, we got J1 is equal to 100. Okay, then the 100th column of A is the first column of C, and the 100th row of B is the first row of R. Okay, and it is not just that, we will normalize these by 1 upon C P1 under root, each of them. Okay, so we will normalize the column by 1 by C root P1, and we will normalize the row by 1 by root C P1. Why we are doing this is because when we multiply them together, these roots they get cancelled and we get 1 upon CP1, which is what we have here. So we have C, and when we have 1 by PJT. So that is the whole idea. In the second step, let's say we get J2 is equal to 10. Then we do the same thing. 10th column of A scaled by 1 by, we'll do 1 by root C P10. Okay, so this will be 100. 1 by root C P10, and this will become the second column of C. Similarly, 10th row of B, when we scale it by 1 by root C P10, we will get, and we substitute it to be second row of R. Okay, and so on. There are also different viewpoints of this, in the sense that we include a sampling matrix, and the sampling matrix has one and zeros and the scaling matrices. So I'll point you to a reference towards the end where you can read about all those details. But yeah, but the idea of what is going on is the same, that we multiply by 1 by root c p10 p100, so that the eventually the end result we get c pjt. Okay, so we have discussed the algorithm. Now we move to the next part, and the next part is designing the sampling probabilities. Okay, so that is the next part, because till now we have just said that we will sample with some probability, but we have not talked about what should be the probability distribution. Okay, so whenever we have to sample, the first choice invariably is always uniformly at random. Okay, so all the PIs are same. So every row and every column has an equal chance. But to understand the consequence of what happens when we do uniform sampling, let us just take the simple case of sum of numbers. So if we have to sum n numbers, okay. Now what will happen if we, and out of these n numbers, we have to sample c terms. Okay, and then using this we are approximating our the whole sum. Let's say x is equal to x1 till xn. Now what happens is that if there is a large difference between the values of each of these xi's, okay, let us say that some of these xi's are in thousands and the other xi's are in decimals or less than 1. Okay, so then what will happen is that if we do uniformly at random, then if we run several instances of picking up several instances of c picks, then we will get a large, there is a good chance that we will get a large variance in the value of x, because if we run it once, then we pick thousands. Let's say we pick the x's whose values lie in the thousands. In the next run, we pick the, and when we say run, we are saying run of picking c terms. Okay, and in the next run, we pick those x's whose value lie between 0 and 1. Okay, so in the first instance, we will get an approximation of the sum that is in thousands, and in the second instance, we will get an approximation of the sum that is maybe less than 100. So what will happen is that the variance in the value of x is very high, and it does not quite work out. I mean, if we want to reduce the variance uniformly at random is not a good way of sampling. Now, to overcome this issue, the intuition basically says that okay, what we will do is that the probability of picking xi, which is pi, is proportional to xi, is proportional to magnitude of xi. Okay, so this is the intuition. If we want to solve this problem, that if we want to reduce the variance, what we'll do is that we will pick our PIs such that their values are proportional to the value of xi. Okay, and as it turns out, this intuition works, and the probability distribution designed in such a way, it is the optimal in a certain sense. Okay, but before going that, because we do not have numbers here, what we have is something of this sort. In our case, when we're looking at matrix multiplication, so we will look at a small uh, byproduct or a small result in between, which is something like this. Okay, where this is the spectral norm which we looked at in the last lecture. The proof is very simple. We already know that the 2 norm or the spectral norm of a matrix is the largest singular value, and we also know that the largest singular value or the singular value or these things, this is the eigenvalue of the A transpose A matrix. Okay. This we knew by drawing the equivalence between singular value decompose between the linear algebra perspective and the data science perspective of singular value decomposition. So for our case, we have xy transpose. 2 norm of xy transpose is nothing but lambda max, where it is the eigenvalue. Sigma 1 here is the largest singular value. We have xy transpose and xy transpose into xy transpose. Okay. Now when we do this, what we have is lambda max of x transpose y. Sorry. I think I made some mistake. Y x transpose into x into y transpose. Okay, this is what we get. Now, since x and y, since x is just a row vector, so since x is just a row vector, x transpose x will be a scalar constant, and as it turns out, it is the 2 norm or the normal Euclidean distance. So what we are left with is since these are also rows and columns and the eigenvalues are invariant to the transpose operation, we get our result. Okay, so this is the result that we have, and using this, the sampling probability we will have okay, where the denominator is just for normalization, normalizing the sum to 1. That is why we have this. And if you look at the numerator, we have two lengths. So this sampling procedure is also referred to as the length squared sampling. This is, I mean, the term is even more relevant when we have B is equal to A transpose, because then it becomes AI. So if B is equal to A transpose, what we are doing is we want to evaluate A transpose. Then our sampling probabilities, they are just these. Okay, so that is where the term length squared sampling became. So the last step is that using intuition, we have defined these sampling probabilities. The last step is to give the performance guarantees. Okay, and it turns out that these sampling probabilities are very good. I mean, they work. The first performance guarantee that we are giving is the following. Okay, so the expected value of the ijth entry in the approximated product is equal to the true value of the product. Okay, so this is the first result, and the proof. The proof is quite straightforward. We define a random variable xt as follows. Okay, so this is corresponding to the ijth entry, and yeah, this is the random variable, because at every time t we are picking a row or a column randomly from a distribution. So this is the ijth entry of that pick, ijth entry of that pick. As we saw earlier, that the dimensions of the true product and the approximate product, they match. Okay, so ijth entry. So that is what. So this is nothing but ijt b jtj divided by c p j t. Okay, because AJT is the column, and this is what we have. So all we have to do is that if we want to calculate the expected value of the ijth entry, it is similar to calculating the expected value of x of t. Okay, in a way it is closely related to calculating the expected value of so what we have is the following. I mean, this might be very boring to some of you, because the algebra and everything is quite simple. We have where we have used in this step we have used linearity of expectations. Now, since all of these xt's are IID, we get c times xt, and this is nothing but okay. So with probability pk at time t, we are picking this product, this component of the product. So that is why we had scaled earlier with pk, just to make sure that everything works out. And what we are left with is a b ij. Okay, so this is the first result. And the second is with regards to the variance. Since we have talked about the variance a lot, uh, so what we have here is that CRIJ uh, I mean, we have this in a straightforward way. And when we recall that the variance is xt square, this we have already calculated. And when we substitute here, eventually what we get is the following. So I'm not going to go through the proof in detail, because I mean it is a simple algebra. Now there are a few other results, but we'll directly move to the main lemma, which I will just state without proof. Okay. So and I'll point you to a reference where you can look at the proof. The proof is very simple. It uses the concept of Lagrange multiplier. Okay, which at least in this week we have discussed in the other video. Suppose if we have the sampling probability, which is the length squared sampling that we had discussed earlier, then this is the optimal sampling probability. Okay, why? In the sense that this sampling probability, it minimizes the expected value of the Frobenius norm of the difference. Okay, so earlier we saw that we have to pick some sampling probability, but the motivation was to reduce the variance. And the performance guarantee that we are giving is that if we pick the samples using the length squared sampling, then the Frobenius norm of the difference of the result when we multiply using CR and the result when we multiply using AB, the Frobenius norm of the difference is the smallest. It is minimized. And when we say minimized, we come up at an optimization problem, and the proof, it uses some Lagrange multiplier method. Okay, so the idea is basically that we want to find PIs and the PIs are constrained to be equal to 1. So this becomes a equality constraint, and the optimization, I mean, it just follows through lots of sum interchange. If when we want to approximate the Frobenius, when we want to express the Frobenius norm, we will get lots of summations. We have to interchange the sequence of summations, and eventually we will get the result. So you can find all these things. The whole lecture today was based on the lecture notes, randomized linear algebra by Professor, I mean, Mahoney. I think he's from Stanford. All these results are there in his notes. I mean, and this his notes are available in archive. Okay, so you can just take a look at all these proofs. The proofs are quite straightforward. You should be able to follow the proofs. And yeah, that's all for today.